how the team is currently constructed, but I do find it interesting. The 49ers are a team that is in win now mode. I still think DeAndre Hopkins is a pretty damn good receiver, especially on this offense. I can't even imagine adding him to it. And he kind of dropped a bombshell over the last 24 hours saying that the 49ers were one of the teams that turned him down. And so he's kind of got a vendetta this year. Now, the Titans don't play the 49ers, not a big deal. But just overall, DeAndre Hopkins potentially wanted to become a San Francisco 49er, and the 49ers said no. Vish, I'm going to start with you on this one because we were joking backstage and I kind of brought it into the intro, but you're not a big Hopkins fan, so you would have turned it down as well. Let's talk through that for a second.
Yeah, not at the money he makes at this point in his career. To me, it's a lot like Larry Fitzgerald late in his career, where he's really slow. I remember when I used to do the show with Grant, I used to make the joke that Trent Williams was faster than Larry Fitzgerald when he was late in his career. And I was half joking, but I think if you made them race, Trent Williams would have come really close. Like Fitz was slow. And I think Hopkins is at the point in his career where he's not really scaring the big time corners. He's slower. I think that a lot of people look at the numbers and the fantasy stats because they still target him a lot. He still lines up in isolated X. He's very good at contested catches. He's always been phenomenal at that. He still adjusts to the ball very well. And they think that he's still a high-level player. But I think at the money he got and the money he was looking for at this offseason and the player that he is at this point, for me, it is a kind of a situation where I don't mind them saying no. I think Hopkins has lost that extra gear. I think he's lost that extra explosiveness. I don't think he is a top 15, like number one receiver in the NFL at this point in his career. And this is a guy that I think at one point in his career, you could make an argument was the best player at his position in the NFL. He was really in the conversation with the Beckhams, with the Browns, with the Julio Joneses, the AJ Greens, all of those guys for a while, even with TJ Yates and Brock Osweiler and those kinds of guys throwing the football to him. But I think at this point, it's just that age has caught up to him. It catches up to everybody besides Tom Brady. I think it's caught up to him. I don't think he's the same guy in terms of being able to scare you on the outside. I don't think he really scares anybody, to be honest. He's still an excellent player in terms of catching the football. But if you're looking at DeAndre Hopkins as a number one wide receiver where he lines up on the outside and the best corner is going to be scared that he's going to run by him at this point in his career, I don't think that's the case. And that's where when he was still looking for number one receiver money, I understand why nobody returned his call.
Okay. I mean, I hear you. I mean, he's not the player that he was. I mean, nobody's, he's now what, 31?
33,
maybe?
Right?
Is he 33?
Or he's 31, sorry.
31.
You're correct. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, he's put up obviously big numbers in the past. Double-digit touchdowns, 2018, 2017. He had 13 touchdowns receiving. 3 out of those 4 years there from 2015 to 2018, he had double-digit touchdowns. But, I don't know. Is he regressed or is it the quarterbacks that he's playing with regressed? I kind of wonder that a little bit with Arizona. And I just think that, obviously he's got a big price tag. You got to get him at your price. But as far as forget the price tag and just talk about the player, I mean, he is very sure-handed, still runs really good routes, wins, in the ball in the air. I mean, I think you can win championships with this kind of a guy because he's so he still has elite ball skills and better than average size and can play, you can throw it up to him. I mean, I just think he's on a really good team with a really good quarterback. I think he could have one more big year.
Do you remember what week Kyler Murray went out? Did we play Kyler Murray last year?
Yeah.
No, they played Colt McCoy and Blau, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, you're right. But I think Kyler, I actually don't remember.
The 49ers played them twice. They played them in week 11, that first game, and I don't remember. 49ers,
McCoy
that was
right
before Thanksgiving.
That was the Mexico game, right? McCoy played in that game.
You're right. Okay. So 4 games with DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray last year. Here was his stats. First game, 10 catches, 103 yards. Second game, 12 catches, 159 yards and a touchdown. Third game, 4 catches, 36 yards and a touchdown. And then the final game was 10 catches for 98 yards. I mean,
he's a big time guy, man. He's a big time
like he's
guy.
a volume guy. He is a volume guy.
It is what I described. It's what I described. Low yards per catch, a lot of shorter hitch routes. He's still excellent with his hands. His hand-eye coordination is phenomenal. As you guys said, he's phenomenal with the ball in the air. But when we're talking about a number one receiver, there has to be some element where he has to scare you after the catch, or he's got to be able to stretch the field and scare you in terms of beating you down the field. And I don't think he's that guy anymore. He's not Jamar Chase, for example, who I was very wrong about before the draft. You want to talk about one of the biggest misses of all time, Vish? I'll take the Niners.
I mean, I like him a lot. He's not a fit for every team, and I don't think he was a fit for the Niners. I mean, the Niners have a tighter cap, and they've got some dynamic receivers. I mean, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Jennings is the third guy. They like him. Gray's the vertical speed. They've got guys who complement one another. They even have some young guys now with ball skills, and Tay Martin and Ronnie Bell. So, I mean, they've got a really deep and talented wide receiver core. But, like, if I was the New York Giants or if I was Dallas or one of these teams that wanted to add another weapon to try to run with the Niners and Eagles in the NFC, or, maybe there's a team in the AFC, but I'd want DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, I bet that, what's he make? Because that's the thing. I mean, it's always about
he has like tag. I think he carries like a cap hit of near $10 million. I think he makes like $12 million this year, which, I mean, if you're talking about the Niners, I don't know that he's their number one receiver. It's pretty close on whether he's their number two receiver.
It's not a priority because they have other needs.
I agree. I just think
the question is, how much are you
player.
paying for a number 3 receiver at that point, right? Because I feel like that's kind of what he fits into. I don't know. It'd be tight, but
I mean, he would have been our slot receiver. I want to point this out. This is a great comment, and I agree. And I think he's going to be that in Tennessee. I think Tennessee's going to use him very similarly. In fact, they've got a lot of guys there from the Texans when he was there the first time that are putting things together. And so I expect him to be a slot receiver. I think he's
going off this year. I think he's going to have a big
I do
year.
too.
But that's the same comparison as end of the career Larry, right? Larry saved his career when Carson Palmer came by moving into the slot and basically becoming a tight end.
Yep.
That's when they do that with DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah.
Go bust out a Tennessee Titan depth chart, and you're going to quickly see that they got 3 guys that can catch the ball. They're going to run it with Henry. They like that kid Spears behind him from Tulane, but then they got the tight end. I can't pronounce his name, Okoronkwo or something.
Yeah. They drafted Josh Wild too.
He's
right?
fantastic.
From Cincinnati. Nice player.
Yeah, they did.
They've got Treylon Burks, the Arkansas receiver, who's big, strong receiver. And then they've got DeAndre Hopkins, the rest of the receiving core. I don't know. I think Burks and Hopkins are going to get a ton of balls from somebody. Is it going to be Malik Willis? Is it going to be Tannehill? I mean, I don't know who's going to be.
It's going to be Tannehill. Come on. It's going to be Tannehill.
I think it's going to be
Tannehill.
Tannehill is definitely better than those 2 quarterbacks they have on their roster for sure.
It's not going to be the rookie.
Tannehill played fine last year. The weapons were terrible. The protection was terrible. It was a bad offense for them.
And I think BMac makes a good point here. He says D-Hop is a waste of money. I'd rather them get a right tackle. Yeah, I agree. I still think it's funny because when there was talks about him being cut from Arizona, actually Grant and I kind of went back and forth on Twitter, and he called Hopkins wash, and I told him he's absolutely wrong. And then I showed him blind numbers of Hopkins and Ayuk, and people got really mad at me, like, Ayuk's way better. And I'm like, listen, I understand Ayuk's ascending. My point is that we love Ayuk here, and we should, but Hopkins is still putting up better numbers at his age, which shows you he's still also really good. He's not washed, was the whole point. It wasn't to bring down Ayuk. It was to prop up Hopkins and say, yeah, he's still pretty good also. Like, that's a real thing.